The Naked Gun is the fourth movie acting as a reboot slash sequel to the classic 80s comedy series starring Leslie Nielsen and O.J. Simpson. The Naked Gun movies were a big deal for my family. When we first came over here from Cuba, there really wasn't a lot of comedy that we could have understood because we didn't speak the language. However, movies like Police Academy, The Naked Gun, those types of films that had a bit more of a slapstick type of, humor, those were easily big laughs in my household. My dad was a huge fan of Leslie Nielsen. In fact, I remember vividly when I was 10 years old in the build up to SummerSlam 94, where it was Undertaker versus The Undertaker. The WWF hired Leslie Nielsen to find out where The Undertaker is, and they filmed a series of vignettes where he kind of played his Naked Gun character to a degree. But my dad loved him, and rest in peace, man. Leslie Nielsen was amazing. Now, this new film is starring his son, Frank Drebin Jr., played by Liam Neeson. The movie has some pretty interesting surprise cameos that I don't want to spoil for you, but just know that, yes, Stingray is in this movie. So, yes, much like Pedro Pascal, Paul Walter Hauser is also in a bunch of movies right now that are in the theater. So the key question is, do I think the movie's funny and do I think you'll like it? It sort of comes down to the kind of humor that you like. But I will tell you this, these types of comedies with this type of humor, like, they don't make them like this anymore. This is something from a previous era that I feel like we haven't seen in quite some time. And having a movie like this existing is already, I think, a step in the right direction for comedy. I think the main selling point is the fact that Liam Neeson, known to be pretty much a badass in most of his roles, is the man in charge of being the lead of this movie, so he has to be funny himself, and he certainly is funny for a few sequences here. I will tell you that I don't think this movie made me laugh anywhere near as much as the first one did, the original Naked Gun, which I recently revisited. I have to go back and watch the second and third ones at some point to kind of, just to see if they hold up, but for me, this movie gave me a few chuckles. There was one huge laugh that I got in the middle of the movie involving a turkey. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, the turkey in the oven. That was genius. I mean, we've seen that kind of comedy before, but I feel like it's been so long, and I think that's what's refreshing about the movie. Something else about the movie, it's under an hour and a half. That's right. It is not even an hour and a half. Do you realize how awesome it is that we have a movie come out that isn't a 2.5 hour bloat fest? Let's just be honest, man. I've talked about this before. A good film just needs to be 90 minutes. Now, with 2 hours and 2.5, you definitely got to use that time wisely, especially for 3 hours. But I think 3 hour movies should be saved for big epic films like the Christopher Nolan movies or the Avengers movies. I think that works. But for a little comedy like this one, 90 minutes is great. In and out, done. Now, depending on your taste of comedy will depend on whether or not you like this movie. So, comedy's the most subjective thing when it comes to film. Therefore, it's very difficult to kind of review this, but just know this. If you are a fan of the original Naked Gun movies, they definitely do their best to recapture that energy and recapture that essence. I don't know if Liam Neeson can really replace Leslie Nielsen, but just seeing Liam Neeson in this was already a great time. And like I said, there's a number of very interesting characters, including from the world of combat sports, that appear in this movie. Maybe you know about it already. I choose not to spoil it for you. But they're in this thing. And I did enjoy the fact that the movie does have a story. Frank has to be a detective and solve the mystery of a murder that appeared to be a suicide and why it happened and who did it. And we follow along as an audience right behind him as he meets a cast of wacky characters and does, all kinds of stuff. Like I said, there's car gags in this. There's gags about technology. There's like an Elon Musk type of character that I'm sure people will enjoy. Like a tech whiz type of guy. You've got the seductress, the temptress, played by Pamela Anderson. So the movie, just having Pamela Anderson in a role this big in 2025 is kind of a shocker. Pamela Anderson defined the 90s with Baywatch. She was considered one of the hottest women on the planet in the 90s, and she still looks good to this day. But she doesn't do all that many movies. But here, this felt like a character she could have easily done, and she did it. And she does help provide some big laughs as well. However, I'll be honest with you, I didn't laugh all that much. I mentioned the turkey scene in the middle of the movie that I loved. There were a couple other times where I chuckled. But for me personally, it just didn't really make me roll out of my seat laughing. But there were other people in the movie theater who were having a great time. There was an older couple there who I know they're fans of the original. You can just tell. And they were really loud with their laughing. And I'm not complaining about that. Like, if you go see a comedy and you obviously when you see a film that's more of a drama, more of a suspense thriller, you don't want the audience to be loud. You want to focus on the film. You know what I mean? But for a comedy, if you're in a movie theater and your audience is coming off like a Japanese wrestling crowd where they're just watching, sitting on their hands or clapping once or twice, that's not a good thing. For comedies, you want people to laugh. You want people to enjoy themselves. And this movie's a quick, enjoyable movie. I really was worried about this. And let me tell you, I was worried the movie would be cringe. And there were a couple of scenes that I thought were kind of cringe, but at the end of the day, they actually, like, for example, the scene that's in the trailer where the little girl is actually Frank in disguise, that scared me because I'm like, if it's gonna be one of these type of movies like Date Movie or Meet the Spartans, I'm out of here. That's garbage. But when you actually see the full scene in the movie, I think they delivered it better. You know what I mean? At first, I was kind of like taken aback by it, like, oh no. But I think by the end, they delivered it a lot better. And there's a lot of, there are some really interesting effects in this movie. And there's choreography. Like, it's not just a traditional comedy where people are telling jokes and being dumb. Like, no, it's more than that here with this one. So I don't know if they're going to make more Naked Gun movies now. They could. They could keep it going. For me, it doesn't matter. If they make another one, a Naked Gun 5, I'll probably go watch it. But if they don't ever make one again, I'll be okay with that too. So I think this movie, I think I liked it a little bit more than Happy Gilmore 2. A lot of these comedies for me are one and dones. This one is probably a one and done, although I may watch it with a couple friends of mine, maybe with a little bit of green in our body to really get those laughs out, because when you've got a little green flowing through your veins, man, that's when everything is great. Anyways, man, have a great one, y'all. I'll be back tomorrow with SummerSlam Night 1 and other stuff too. Take care.